Well, good morning, everybody. This is Keith with Positively Osceola. We're here for another episode of our morning coffee club discussion. And as I always do, out of ceremony, I pass the cup by, making sure you realize that this is an authentic title, being Coffee Appreciation. But I'm not drinking coffee alone today because I have a very cool guest with us this morning, and that would be Alexandria Rosolowskia from the Huntington Learning Center in St. Cloud. And I'm going to bring her up front. And boom, there we are. And
Hello.
Even in more living color, ba-boom. Now it's up close and personal. Who doesn't want that in the morning?
Right?
So how are you?
I am doing good. Staying busy, but good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So everyone in your family okay, and your dog's okay, and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, dogs are okay. They definitely wish they could go to the dog park more often. That's a sure thing. And then my sister, she's actually a pediatric ICU nurse, so she's staying busy that way.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you have a busy life, you whole family.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Well, so we'd be fine and dandy, Alex, for sure, just to sit here and talk German Shepherds and coffee. I don't think there's any question about that. But we really should talk about something because it's a serious subject, a serious subject done very well by Huntington Learning Center in St. Cloud. So why don't you tell us a little bit, for those folks who just may not be very familiar with Huntington Learning Center in St. Cloud, why don't you give us just kind of the lowdown so people get an idea of what you're doing over there?
Yeah, so we are a tutoring service for grades kindergarten through 12th, and then we also do exam prep for your normal standardized tests, so like the SAT, the ACT, ASVAB, things of that nature. And what we pretty much do is we help students to gain a better understanding and to continue their academics in a more successful way. For if you have a student who's not doing so well in a subject or failing, we're able to figure out what they're not understanding, what they're not grasping, able to work on the foundation so that way they can bring it up, so that way they can continue on in their journey to graduation or beyond, and they're not going to be falling through the cracks.
So it's certainly not a foreign subject these days, with parents finding themselves in an occupation for a while here, which they had not expected, being the teacher at home. That's certainly a challenging scenario. And it was thrust upon parents rapidly, obviously, with the stay-at-home order and just trying to be safe with COVID-19 being so prevalent everywhere. So let's address that. So we were talking earlier, that presents a challenge as the year ends educationally now within the county, and as the fall approaches, and it'll approach quickly for sure. So how does Huntington Learning Center in St. Cloud, how does that play in to assisting? I know why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about what you're saying is the COVID slide and the summer slide. Let's just go right at that.
Yeah, so the summer slide is something that happens every year. It's inevitable. Kids finish a semester, they finish their grade level. They're like, I'm done. I don't want to do anything until August comes and I have to restart. Right. And that's something that you're always going to have happen. Doesn't matter what grade or what age they are. This year, unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, they're going to be expecting to see a higher slide of that summer slide, with a 30% loss in reading and up to as much as 60% in math. And the reason for that is because when this happened and the schools had to transition into an online platform, they decided that to review the information that they have already covered would be easier for the online platforms and be more fulfilling, so that they can grasp what they've already learned versus introducing so many more topics by the end of the school year. So when you have, let's say, a 5th grader going into 6th grade next year, he's only going to have an understanding of half of 5th grade.
All right. But they're in that, if everything starts up as typically it does in August, everything is going to compact in that first half of the year, where they're going to have to catch up with Florida.
They're going to have to catch up. Yeah, they're going to have to catch up, and it's going to be more of a condensed push. And when you do that, you're going to have a loss of information, because when you try to jam pack something into a short period of time, you're going to get some main ideas, but you're not going to grasp everything. And sometimes the things that you don't grasp are the things that you need to be able to carry on into the next grade level.
Sure. And And I think the school district did a great job getting out quickly. I think in some areas and certainly in some states, they just said, look, this is going to happen. So in my personal perspective, hats off to the district for saying, no, we're going to finish the school year out and do the best we can with all the pressure on the teachers and students and families. But you have a solution. So I know tomorrow there's something that you're doing that will be a great way for people to understand how to prevent that COVID slide, how to prevent that summer slide, and get ready for the fall. Why don't you explain to the people what that is?
Yeah, so what it is it is a webinar that we're doing, and it's at 1:30. I think it's about an hour long, so it should be done by 2:30. And you can sign up for it by going to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Huntington St. Cloud, Florida. And it's the ST for the St. Cloud. And yeah, so for that, and we can always put in a link to it, but what it practically is doing is it is explaining what the summer slide is, what the COVID slide is, how parents can benefit and how students can benefit from learning the information so that way they don't fall behind.
Got it. So can you describe what is this setting? I know that I've talked a little bit about this with you guys, but so why don't you explain how Huntington does what you do and why it's so impacting, why it's so efficient in student learning, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. So one of the biggest things that we do is a big step, little step type of program. And what that is what we do is when we have a student come in, we do an academic evaluation. And when we do that, we go over the main subject areas. And with that, we find what they're not grasping fully, I would say what their struggle is, and what they're not fully understanding, why they're not getting the grades that they want, or why they're not passing what they want. And with that, what we do is we do material that reviews in the order of their comfort level. And with that, we build up to the grade level that they need to reach for the next year. So you start them at something that they understand fundamentally what they completely understand 110%. Right. And from there, we build until their comfort level starts to kind of waver because they didn't fully learn something or understand something. So as you bring them from those big steps of, oh, I've got this, I know how to do addition, I can simply add 2 + 2 into dividing fractions.
Understood.
Per se. So what you do is you start them off on a base where they understand, where they can gain that confidence, and they can say, oh, I can do this, I can learn, I can achieve what I want to. And then you bring it up to, okay, yes, it's getting a little bit more difficult, but you have us here to work with you and to explain it in any kind of way that you need it, because everybody learns differently. And in our settings, you can take that individualized approach and say, okay, if you don't understand your math being explained this way, well, let's try this way. And if that doesn't work, well, then let's try this way. Now we found the way that you are able to understand it, and we can build from there.
And the pace can be based upon that individual student's learning.
Exactly.
The best method for teaching that student. Is that correct?
Every student has an individualized time frame. Every student has an individualized learning style, what they're learning, and the pace that they learn. So it is all based on how they learn and how quickly they understand the information. So if you have a student who gets it immediately and you're like, okay, let's practice it. As soon as I can say that you mastered this, then we can move on to the next thing. But it doesn't matter if it takes 1 class or 5. If you master it, you master it. And then that's where we go from.
And obviously, most of the people we speak to are going to be in Osceola County. And right now, certainly we've had a lot of people here. I should probably make sure any comments that come in. And there's one just saying good morning. How nice is that? But why don't you make sure, I know we kind of referenced this, why don't you make sure people know how do they get set to watch that webinar tomorrow, where you're located, how they get a hold of you. Let's make sure we continue to say that so people are understanding how to move forward from here.
Yeah, so our center number is 407-789-0228. And we are located at 4554 13th Street, Unit A2 in St. Cloud, next to the Home Depot.
Gotcha.
That's the biggest eye marker between the Home Depot and the Walmart there. As for the webinar, on our Facebook page, there's 2 ways you can get to us. Either you can go to our Facebook page, which is Facebook.com/Huntington St. Cloud, Florida. with the acronym for Saints in Florida.
Yeah.
And you can scroll down and look for the summer and COVID slide. We have a post there, and you can click on that post, find the link, sign up for it, and then you're good to go. The other way we can do is we can add in a link to this post here.
I always, when I speak to a teacher or a person that's really involved in education, I always feel like when I'm listening to you speak, I'm like, I want to ask. So it must be extraordinarily rewarding to see a kid come in that may be challenged in some areas specifically, or maybe they just want to super excel in one area. It must be rewarding to watch those kids come in, leave with that knowledge that they were questing for. How does it feel as a teacher, as a person within this program at Huntington Learning Center?
It feels amazing and rewarding, and to see a kid come in, and I mean, we have a student right now who does not like math, hates math, doesn't understand it. It's like, he's like, can we just get it over with so I don't have to think about it anymore? And when you go from that and them failing that grade to, I just got my first A.
Awesome.
You have a sense of, we did it, and it's a group effort, and you just see them smile and you think all of that work was well worthwhile, just to see them have that confidence and to say, oh, I can do this. I just went from getting C's and D's and F's to getting an A.
And so aside from that, obvious, that's a major reward. I'm sure that's how your passion is wrapped as well. And this may be my last question. How does it, do you see the peace that comes over the parents? Because I know right now, the thing on social media has been, my gosh, do you value teachers now? And of course, the answer is yeah. So how does it feel to see the parents know that they're bringing the best assistance they can to make sure their kids are getting what they need in education? That's got to be awesome to get those testimonies from the parents saying, thank you. Boy, am I glad I did this. What if I didn't do this? So why don't you share that part of the reward when you see those parents benefiting?
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple of different parents who are like, thank God you guys are here, because I don't think I could sit in front of a computer screen with my kid for 2.5 hours or an hour and a half or an hour, depending on their age, and do the amount of work. They would go out of their mind. And having, like, let's say a second grader sitting on a computer still for an hour and a half,
right,
that in itself is a feat. So when it comes to parents, we want to let them know that we're here, that we have teachers that are capable of keeping the student entertained and on track and focused on the material. And we do it in a fun way, because we understand that being on a computer, sitting still in a chair, having to interact in the most uncommon way possible for a child,
right,
is difficult in itself. And add learning and them having to retain information this way, it adds a more difficult step to it.
right, right.
So for us, we want to make sure that parents know that we are here for them, whether it's online or once our center is reopening, which would be Monday. And
awesome.
Yeah, we're going to be back in person. We're going to be following the CDC guidelines and doing that way. That way, for parents who will say, you know what, I don't want to have my child online, but I do want to have them in a center with that personalized in-person interaction. We're trying to get back to that, because that is where we started at, and that's where we see the most success, even though we have transitioned to online and we are still seeing that success.
Right. So that'll be the end game, obviously, getting back into that scenario. You're not going to stay in this position just as soon as everybody can safely do so, along with the district, of course. All right. So really great time spent. I can tell a lot of people were very interested in this. It's obviously it's the topic of all topics right now. Interesting. We're going into the summer, and this will remain the topic as we know it will. And so no better time for the webinar to take place. Just as a recap, if you just clicked in, the website you can get a hold of them is at huntingtonhelps.com, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And also tomorrow at 1:30, that's Thursday, May 14th, is their webinar. We won't beat you with all those informational details again, but we will put it in this post. So if you're interested in that webinar, and that webinar is no cost, correct?
No, it is no cost. It is free to the public.
Gotcha. So certainly this affects so many people throughout the county and specifically in the greater St. Cloud area. So by all means, go ahead and we'll make sure that link is on this post as soon as we finish, and that'll get you all set. You're able to go to that webinar tomorrow and make those decisions to make sure that you're bringing the best possible educational choices to your students, your kids, and the family. And so we really appreciate it, Alexandria, and that you would join us today. Very cool conversation. My day is way cooler now than it was going to be if we hadn't chatted. So thanks. All right. Again, today, this is Keith with Positively Osceola with Alexandria Rosolowskia with the Huntington Learning Center in St. Cloud. Together, we're making a positive difference in Osceola County. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Bye now.